Welcome in to another episode of Trucker Talk Radio, Behind the Wheelhouse. We got a great guest today, Stacey Grove, president of Workhorse Logistics. He's come from logistics management to customer retention to business strategy and operational growth. He has built his career around improving operations and helping companies perform at a higher level. How you doing today, sir? Glad to have you on, and go Gators.
Go Gators, man. Thanks for that intro. I really appreciate you saying all that. I mean, I'd like to accept some of those honors, and just humbly say it's still a work in progress, but I'm trying to make that happen in my life.
One thing about this industry that we are in, it's a work in progress every day because something new will hit, something new will
Indeed.
hit you every time. That's why me
Indeed.
and you both have the short haircut. It just, it's funny. I have these conversations daily on this channel. You would be surprised how many guys don't have hair in the trucking industry. I mean,
Man.
it's really a side joke, but in reality, it's pretty common. I mean,
It's pretty common.
it is. It is. Well, let's get started with tell us about your background, where you grew up, and then, kind of how you got into trucking there.
Well, it's funny you started with Go Gators. I
Hmm.
spent, of course, a lot of time in Gainesville, Florida. I moved to Florida from the state of Ohio when I was 15 or 16. I don't remember how old we were, but town right in the middle called Ocala. Sorry, my dog's been
Hmm.
barking.
No,
And
you're fine.
I went to high school there. I went to college for a couple of years there. Then moved up to Gainesville, and I fell in love with that town. Went to college. I studied microbiology and cell science of all things. Is what I got my
Oh.
bachelor's degree in, which obviously has nothing to do with logistics, man. I wanted to be a dentist, and
Oh,
my
okay.
I have a twin brother, and he ended up actually marrying our dentist's daughter. And like the whole like plan, for my life, go to college, maybe UF, maybe wherever, and come back to Ocala, and maybe one day take over his practice. And of course, God laughs at our plans, so it is what
Oh,
it is.
yeah.
But I met a Seminole. I met her when
Oh,
I was in Ocala actually, and she's my wife. I got married in college, love at first sight kind of thing. But man, I met her. I worked at a gym, and she walked into the front of the gym, and I told all the guys I was working with, I was like, I'm gonna marry that girl right there, and I did.
that's
Learned
awesome.
he was from Florida State. It didn't
How so
a little
y'all
bit
have
different.
y'all have one of those tags on the front of your car that says house
Dude.
divided, right? Yeah.
Yeah, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. The rest is kind of history. I mean, I never ended up being a dentist. I got into sales, selling phones. I did mortgages. I kind of did all kinds of stuff after college, but um, I ended up moving up to Indiana for work with Verizon, a major Verizon retailer,
Okay.
and it's kind of when I moved from sales into let's call it operations because my
Hmm.
role was training, but they kind of put me wherever they needed me and leadership, etc. And then I went to work for, I left Verizon. I went to work for a garage door company, one of the biggest precision door franchises in the country, and worked for a great guy there. And I would probably still be there, frankly, if I
Hmm.
hadn't had kind of the opportunity that I have kind of fell in my lap. Um, my wife and I have always wanted to kind of have a little bit off the beaten path lifestyle. I'll tell you about that in a second. But so I stayed at Precision for a year, and then a buddy of mine asked me to come help him run his trucking company. And while I was at Verizon, I'd been doing part-time, you could call it dispatching, but sales work.
Hmm.
Really, I was doing some marketing for his logistics company, just trying to make a couple extra bucks on the side and learn the industry because he was offering me a decent compensation. I said, okay, cool. I'll book some trucks, book some loads, learn a little
Yeah.
bit about trucking. My buddy, he said, hey man, I need you to come full time, and I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll go into trucking. He ran a brokerage like I do, but
Hmm.
he ran his remotely. And at first he ran it just kind of from his apartment, but then he ends up moving to South America. He moved to
Oh, wow.
Colombia, and he ran his brokerage from Colombia. He was kind of doing the remote work thing before it was kind of
Hmm.
accepted, right?
Right.
And he wanted me to come help him. So my wife and I were like, well, it's going to be a heck of a pay cut. Well, then a buddy of mine, another buddy, a buddy of ours, actually, his parents and my wife and I, we got pretty close, and they ended up actually getting a place outside the United States, and didn't have anybody live in it. So they were like, "Hey, what would you guys think about that? To about and maybe come live there." And at first, I'm like, "You're out of your mind! Like, you're crazy." But then as my buddy Ryan was offering me this position and it would be remote, I was thinking, maybe we could swing this and make it work. So
Mm-hmm.
Melissa came and she went abroad and checked the place out, asked how to live life, outside the United States.
Yeah.
And she came home and she said, "Hey, sell everything. We're going to do it." So
Wow.
we did it. We actually moved abroad. I'm actually sitting in the house that we have now, and been here for 5 years, running my logistics company remotely. And the rest is kind of history. I mean, I've been running it, just myself for the first couple of years, trying to get my feet wet.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm really looking to expand, bring on a couple more sales guys in the United States, maybe get a terminal of my own. That would be pretty cool, I think,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the Ocala area where my office is and my family is, because I go back a bunch each year to see people and see customers and things. But I think it's a great area. I think it's a growing part of the country, and trucking in Florida, as you know, it's kind of it's
Yeah.
kind of nuts. The
Yeah.
drivers don't like going there for reasons. But if you can serve a local area or a local metro, like you're from Tampa, or you're gonna be going to Tampa, like
Mm-hmm.
that whole area is really an opportunity for
Mm-hmm.
anybody willing to invest some time and some money and develop a good network of drivers and carriers.
Yeah.
So that's the rest is that's where I'm at now today.
Yeah, the Florida market is very unique. You got to get freight out of there, but no one cares about the freight costing, being worth anything. It's unless it's at a certain time of watermelon season or something
Dude.
like that is just slammed. But it's such a short time period to do it. It's hard to get owner operators, especially, to understand. Hey, I can get you three and a half, $4 a mile to Florida, but you're gonna get $1.50 going out. But let's
Yep.
average that, and you still made $2 or something a mile, which is they just now. And you tell them at the beginning, and then they get there. Well, it's $1.50 coming out. Okay, we went over that. You're still the average, man, and it's just like the whole conversation changed. So yeah, I've been down that road a many a times. Tell us a little bit about your company and exactly what you're doing. What industries are you brokering and stuff like that.
I've tried to dabble in a little bit of everything. And when I say that, what do I mean? So the standard 53-foot dry van freight is something I've done, I still do, but I don't particularly care for it. And the biggest reason is I come from a sales background. My ideal markets are the places where the average broker doesn't want to touch. In other words, where's the competition not? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the sectors of the logistics industry that always seemed to me underserved, that nobody wanted to touch, at least from a broker perspective that I knew, was import export,
Mm-hmm.
specifically container freight. I'd always found anybody that I'd ever talked to in logistics, they either didn't want to touch it because it had too many parts, or they didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand it, or they didn't feel like the margins were there, or for whatever reason. Even the guys that I used to work with, they would just pass me Dre quotes and say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey man, you deal with this. If we win it, you can handle it." And at first,
Right.
I didn't like them either, because I was
Right.
like, "Oh, there's all these moving parts. You got to know what day the boat leaves and stuff."
Yeah.
But then I kept getting more and more and more of them, and then of course everybody remembers COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
and the dry van freight kind of went sideways for a lot of people, but the import export work was massive because everybody got locked in except for the guys bringing freight into the country from Amazon, right?
Right.
So the
Yep.
opportunity to learn this segment of logistics was huge, and I jumped on it because the competition, at least for me, was pretty low.
Yeah, I could see
And then I
that.
branched from that into warehouse, cross dock, learning how to manage a container to bring it inside a warehouse, take it into inventory. What does that look like? And then get it delivered to the final door, how to communicate each piece there, and start trying to win additional business from other customers who are either directly draining it to their customer's final door and paying an arm and a
Mm-hmm.
leg, or finding ways to consolidate freight into fewer loads to get it delivered to the final door to save everybody money and book a full truck and make drivers happy. And that's where I try to spend my time now. And I got, by God's grace, I got pretty lucky, man. I don't currently have, or at least I haven't really had to do a lot of sales work and outreach for a very long time.
Right.
And the reason why I'm even considering it now is I'd like to grow. You know, they say that if you can make it 5 years, you're good to go, and I've hit that.
Hmm.
And that's why I brought on a sales guy recently. He's doing a good job for me, and I figured, okay, it's time to start growing because I've lived that long. You know, I've made it. You know, I think
Right.
I'm not going to go bankrupt next week. Um, but until this time, everything I've done has been word of mouth. And my background in cell phones with Verizon, we got trained to always be asking for referrals, always be following up with your customer to make sure, hey man, are you happy? If you're not happy, why aren't you happy? And if you are happy, do you know anybody else that I could make happy just like you? That's all I've done. I
All
just
right.
I get the referrals from the existing customers, and thanks be to God, I haven't really had to do what a lot of brokers do and
Hmm.
pound phones, looking for freight, looking for freight. It's just my customers have referred me to their customers, and it's worked out really well. And I want to keep doing that. I want to train that and grow an
Hmm.
organization with that. If my kids want to go into freight, that's what I'm going to put into them and continue hopefully to grow my business with that. And that's what I would recommend anybody in freight do, man. I mean, it's a weird business now, but I find that a lot of guys that I talk to that are also still doing logistics, man, they have a hard time getting out of like the whole phone pounding behavior.
Hmm.
If you just
Yeah.
go back to your old customers, ask them for some business, follow up, treat them like a human, man, you'll get some business and do a good job.
Well, and you're right about a lot of that. We speak on here a lot about relationships, and the day, in my opinion, the days of knocking on doors and cold calls, that kind of went out the window after COVID. Pretty much everybody's locked their office up. You don't, or they work remote. I mean, I remember going. I was still pounding the dirt, during that time. And I remember I'd go to several places, and they would not let you pass the front door. And they said, "Oh, just leave your information in the drawer." You open the drawer, and there's 9 million, things in there, and you just close it like, "Man, I'm not going to even waste my time." And now, trying to make calls and stuff, and I think you made a pretty smart decision. I've dabbled in the overseas market and containers and stuff. I used to do stuff out of China a lot
Oh,
and
yeah.
lived there for a little bit. And that's a very market that, like you said, a lot of people don't know about, they're scared about, or don't want that because there is a lot of moving parts. I mean, you're
Oh, yeah.
exactly right. I mean, not only you got to worry about both sides of the world, you got to then worry about the customs. Getting here, does it get delayed? How long does it take on the ocean? Do you get it out of the port quick enough to where it's not a fine? But you talk about it even a little bit better, in my opinion, to where there's more freight than just that container. Because you get it from point A to point B, then on the boat to point C, and then you get it to a dock, and then you get smaller shipments out of there that you can
Yep.
can broker or have a truck for that. So you don't have to have a gazillion customers, and with the way you're doing it, I can easily see, you do a good job. Your space is not as big as, like you said, dry van. I mean, dry van, everybody and their brother's doing it because that's easy. And
Yeah.
easy ain't always the best model. So I do like that model that you've come up here with your little niche because it is different. Now, are you wanting to do that with your new agents, or are you trying to let them broad out to the regular old freight in the US, or what's your goal there?
To put it succinctly, I really don't care. I would I mean if it's freight, it's freight. And if the customer pays, we're happy. But I always want to do a good job, and I don't want to chase the cheap stuff. I tried that
Yeah,
in the beginning,
yeah.
and I've just found that like there's always people telling you how much freight they got, and they don't want to pay you nothing for it. And you can do a heck of a lot of work and make almost no money chasing the cheap freight.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say I would love to have somebody that I could train to know the business like I do. And I'm not anybody special. I would pass on to them what I've picked up so that we can kind of replicate the model. I would love to do that and just stick with containers, just stick with import
Hmm.
export. I do it all, but this is my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And maybe one day have a different division within the organization, have different support staff in the
Hmm.
organization. I mean, it's kind of funny. You talked about doing both sides of the ocean. Man, even something as simple as when you bill a customer, if the customer is an NVOCC or someone that's actually involved in the complete supply chain, and they're not just like the guy that's paying for the freight. You have to bill them in a very specific way, or your invoice is going to get ignored, man. I
Yep.
learned that the hard way. I mean, really, I learned that the hard way. I would send bills, and I'm like, this thing hasn't been paid in 60 days. What is happening? And so then you call
Mhm.
the accounts payable, and they're like, well, you didn't include our reference number and the booking number and this, and I'm like, you dummy. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Well, they're finding any way they can anyway to delay the payment. So,
That's, I mean, no question. Hey, man, he didn't send it on the Tuesday at 3 when we say we receive invoice billing. So I guess it'll be back next week. Like everybody's got a reason to not pay you. And I've gotten into some heated discussions with some friends about this. Like, man, my attitude is always do not give the customer a reason to not pay you. Don't be the reason why your customer, doesn't return emails. Always take all the barriers out of the way. If that
mhm,
means you got to do a little bit of work of their job for them, do it.
mhm.
That means you got to do a little bit of your driver's job for them, do it. Don't be the lazy guy that forwards his email and expects things to work itself out because they never do.
Never do.
And
Yep.
then you're just like everybody else. Then you're
Mhm,
just like everybody else from TQL and every other broker that's calling them or doing business or whatever
mhm.
and delivering no service. And those little things, man, they will be what keeps you a customer for years. I mean,
Yes.
I've had the same customers, I mean, really, thank God for this, man, for 5 years.
Wow.
And they keep sending me the business, send me the business, take care of this, man, take care of this, man. And I'm like, you got it. And if I don't, man, I own it. I didn't
Right.
get the container out. It's $125 storage fee. I'll take it off
Mhm.
my invoice, pay it, we're good to go. I don't even question it. You do that kind of stuff,
Yep.
man, they'll send you a delivery order and you don't have to think twice. I'm telling you.
Well, and your attitude is a way that I don't know if most people, think about it. So, within what's in the news right now, and it has been for a while, besides the other stuff I'll get into about trucking, is about, the transparency with brokerages and stuff. And, truck drivers are all about, hey, we want to know what the profit is and this and that. It's a free country, in my opinion. You can charge what you want, you can accept it or not. But the way that you do business is going to keep you afloat because, and I want people to understand this that are brokers or you're thinking about being a broker. The big issue with transparency that I see, if brokers start deciding it's not worth being a broker no more because of all this hassle, they're going to pass it back to the carrier. The carrier's going to have to hire all this staff to do the work. Well, that money is not going to get extra to the driver. It's still going to stay at the carrier because they got to pay for it all. But
Right.
with you doing that little bit of extra, you'll get more business because even a CEO that maybe won't work with you daily, but he has some, people under him that does, he knows that his people aren't going to do everything perfect. They're going to, delay this. But if you go and do the extra mile, that's going to bring you extra business and be referred like you've been. And a lot of people don't understand that. I'm bad about it on my daughter. My daughter gets on me all the time, and I'm trying to teach her business, and I'll answer the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't care.
Yep.
That's what you're supposed to. I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I've always done, and little things like that make such a big difference that I wished more companies would do it. But again, you're a smaller company, and I think that's the big thing. These bigger companies that you mentioned TQL. There's all of them out there. They're so big that when you get really, really big, everybody thinks somebody else is doing that job. And so that job just goes under the table and no one knows about it. And that's what I think happens with a lot of the communication in trucking. And I'll even use TQL as an example. When back when I would get loads from them, six people would call me within 30 minutes and asking for an update. And I'm like, well, I just talked to three of you. Why didn't you put that in the computer so you see it? And just stuff like that. No, and it gets lost. So I kudos for you doing business that way. This brings me to what the core of the trucking industry is right now, and it's fraud. non-driving CDL guys. I mean, it's, wrecks. I mean, it's all in the news nowadays. And I guess it's good finally that, the government's getting involved and they're trying to do some different things. With your side of the business, in containers and then, basically just bringing stuff to the customer, have you run into a lot of that,
Oh, dude.
with fraud and different issues?
Let's just say the levels of cynicism and skepticism that have cropped up in my brain over the last 5 years are legendary because you can't be naive and be in trucking, especially now. The levels of fraud are insane. Again, through pain and through making some silly mistakes, financial mistakes.
Mhm.
I had a load stolen once. You learn how to treat everybody, and you still treat them
Mhm.
like a human. You still talk to them like a human when you're vetting a new carrier, but your spidey sense goes off. And I mean, just some of the things that I have started to make a habit of is double and triple checking the things that I used to take for granted when it came to my fraud filter. So I use RMIS. In the
Mhm.
beginning, when money was tight and I had no money and I didn't even know what I didn't know, I would just
Right.
go to Safer and check and send them a carrier packet that I built and have them send me the insurance and kind of do it longhand and
Mhm.
hope for the best. I mean, and again, I got lucky. I got scammed a couple times. I've had carriers steal a load. I've had carriers book a load from the board under another guy's name, and they
Mhm.
send the driver a fictitious rate con or BOL. Once you pick up the phone and you really push to get the driver on the phone and not just the guy that's answering the emails, the scheme unwinds. When you make that a habit, whenever you book a load with a new carrier, man, you can cut a lot of that down. But I mean, that's a long-winded answer to say yes. And I think the fraud is worse than it's ever been. If I
Mhm.
would tell you my opinion, I would encourage anybody that's getting into logistics for the first time now to really, really make sure that who you're booking a load with is who you're booking a load with.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, no one knows who the driver is. I mean, you can vet the carrier, but the drivers, you expect the carrier to vet it. Well, we've already seen that there's a lot of carriers that don't vet their drivers because they shouldn't even be on the road.
Correct.
And our one of our main sponsor here, and I'm a part of Ready App, they're trying to fight that. They do a digital driver's passport. The driver actually owns their information. The trucking industry is still way behind in technology from any
Yep.
other sector. So, a driver has all this paperwork, but it's paperwork. Well, it gets lost, or you can fraudulent because you can make up a piece of paper, or, say it's somebody else because you don't really know who you're talking to on the other side of that phone. And here it's a digital passport. It saves their CDL, medical card, operation authority, their insurances, everything's in one document that can be shared within seconds to anyone, DOT officer, a broker, care being onboarded. And so it's a way to actually know who the driver is. It's something that has got to be done because, good guys and good companies like you just can't handle that very often. I mean, and it gets frustrating. I mean, I can only imagine. I don't deal with with freight per se that much anymore. So, I don't know how I'd act if it happened. Because when I was doing it, it wasn't bad. I mean, you still had your bad apples, and you're still going to
Yep.
have a bad apple. I mean,
Yep.
that's just part of the world that we live in. But to have as many of them as we do, we have barrels. We don't have one apple. We have barrels of bad apples
I
now.
have I kind of have like a mental checklist. I'm sure you remember when you would post loads on the board. I used to use truck stop and
Hmm.
DAT. Now it's DAT. Before I go to the board, I always see if one of my old guys can do it. So then I stick it on the board. They still find it, but I don't even publish my phone number. I go right to the
Hmm.
email chain, to the email thing because you know that your phone will blow up the second you post the load.
Yep.
I've kind of developed a little mental checklist because I
Mhm.
know I know I know what the scammers they look like. If you
Yep.
get 20 hits on a load and the inbound comes in, you can even look at their email address of what it's coming from and see it's probably going to be fraud. I
Hmm.
mean, just because if you've got like some dude that says, mike.smith@gmail.com, man, just delete that email. Like don't even
Yep.
don't even look at it because
Exactly.
odds are if you go down that list of 20 that came in, there's going to be a better quality individual in the lineup to do it anyway. Now, does that make it does that mean that you got to do a little bit extra work to negotiate, talk about the load, find the right guy? Of course. But okay, would you rather spend time chasing down a stolen load? Would you rather,
Exactly.
end up having an insurance claim? Whatever. No, you put the time in on the front end. A lot of these guys, and one of the things that I've tried talking to a number of the drivers that I use a lot, um,
Hmm.
and kind of explain to them too. I mean, these owner operators, especially the new guys that get in, man, they're struggling for cash in the beginning. They're trying to
Oh yeah.
make AP, NAR, and gas prices and this and that. So they're looking to keep things inexpensive. So
Hmm.
they'll go to some cheap dispatching service out of New Delhi and they'll hire 15 different guys with the last name Singh to try to find them loads. Well, those guys do not have your best interest in mind. They don't care about you,
Absolutely.
man. And and,
Yep.
and furthermore, their job is to be vetting the loads to protect you as the driver. They're not doing that. They're throwing as
No.
much spaghetti against the walls as will stick to hopefully get them the biggest piece of compensation and get you the least compensation so they can make the middle, just like everybody else does in logistics. And as a
Absolutely.
driver, as an owner operator, you have to protect your business. You got to protect your name, protect your assets, protect everything, and use a better quality dispatcher.
Hmm.
I've always like recommended, man, if you're an owner op and you got a buddy who's an owner op, man, tag team. Use each other
Hmm.
as a dispatcher. When you're not driving, you dispatch. Or if you're married, or if you got a brother, or if you got somebody else, use someone that has a vested interest in the success of your operation to handle your loads and your dispatching. And you will have
Yep.
less fraud, less chances of showing up to places where the load's not there, or
Hmm.
other things like that. But most of the fraud stems from really poor vetting from all these unanimous parties that exist in cyberspace now, man. And
Hmm.
it's getting worse because the barrier for entry into trucking is still so low.
It is.
I mean, dude, it's $7,500 max to get a bond and a couple $100 to incorporate.
Yep.
You steal one load, you can make that back,
And
turn the
get
turn the company off, get a new company.
Yep.
It's and it
It,
it's nasty.
it is, and you bring up two good points actually that I want to touch on. One is the owner operator. The owner operators don't realize that they're a business person. They just still think themselves as a truck driver, and you're not.
Yeah,
You have your own business, and owner operators have got to finally figure out and stand up and go, "Hey, we got to protect our entity here as a
yep,
group," and that's something that I've seen that's missing from trucking. The good old boy days of 30 years ago, where every truck driver helped every truck driver, they worked. They don't. It's all competition, and they've got to start sticking together because these bad actors, bad apples are tearing, just tearing them apart. But it's funny, and I'm glad you brought it up. The load board. There's at Ready App. I hate bringing it up, but it's a good point I want to make. We're introducing a load board, and I want to throw something at you because to me this is kind of common sense, but no one does it. You were talking about relationships with your drivers, and you're having to sit there and you want to work with them first. Why
yep.
why don't these load boards automatically send your load out to drivers that you've already worked with?
I would do that.
But
That
but
would be an incredible asset.
well, that's what we're doing at Ready App. So what happens is a driver sends you their passport. You work with them. You verify everything's good. Well, then you save them under your favorite people. If it's somebody that works good, you save them. That driver
Yep,
can do the same. If they like working for you and like your loads, they can even save a certain lane that you might have, or you can save them for areas that you know. Plus, it's going if the driver will allow you to track them or to keep up their location, it'll let you know where they're delivering the next time. So if you've got something, it's
that's cool.
because it's about relationships. And but the big thing is there's two parts of a load board that I don't understand. One, these load boards, you can only find a load if you're on it. So drivers, especially if you're a
Right.
single owner operator doing everything yourself, you only have a small window to find your load. And you got to be on there at that right time. Second problem is most of these guys don't pay attention. They're just looking at to and from. They don't look at the email like you were talking about. And it's just as bad on the broker side. It'll be Mike.Smith. TQL at gmail.com. Well, they just see the TQL and they jump on it because they're
Yep.
driving or they're stopped for 10 minutes and they're in a rush. And so this way we're trying to push information out to everybody. It's going to push information back to you as a broker. Go, hey, Mike Smith, a person that you've worked with before, he's going to be in Panama City Beach, Florida on Friday. You've got a load, boom. Because there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, about trucking, and I'm a big truck driver believer. If we don't have truck drivers, we don't have trucking. And they can take out
No.
autonomous stuff and they can throw it out the window. It ain't happening in my lifetime where it's going to
Yep.
affect anything anyway. If you don't have the truck drivers are the major core of the whole industry, but they're the least respected and least given anything. The industry's fragmented and they're way the hell over here. Everybody else is
The
kind of close.
government's always in their
Yeah.
pocket. The government has always got their hand in their
Oh
pocket.
yeah, they do. They do. They got it in my pocket, and I wish they'd get out of it too. So I know how they feel. Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to get your couple thoughts on what you think the future of logistics looks like, either as broad or just for you in general. And then once you get through with that, give yourself a plug. Let everybody know where they can find you.
There's two big things that are kind of hanging over the entire American economy right now. I mean, I think every single worker out there is worried about two things, and that's artificial intelligence, and I think
Mhm.
specifically it's automation, robotics. Those two kind of do go hand in hand. I mean, I think we're going to see a greater adoption of automation in trucking. I don't know
Mhm.
how far off that is, but there's a clear push for it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I happen to think it's actually a good thing. I happen to think it's kind of funny, my approach to being a broker since day one has always been to try to do everything I can to think like a driver. Like I've always said
Mhm.
to myself, and anybody I've trained to do freight, dude, put yourself in the driver's seat. What information would you want? How would you want to do this load if you were the guy driving the truck? It's kept me out of so much trouble. And I think about that now. So if I'm a driver and I like to do over the road stuff because I like being in the truck.
Mhm.
Well, I know robotics and automation is coming, so what's the next step? I don't think you have to eliminate the driver. I think the driver just changes roles. And the
Mhm.
and the guy
Absolutely.
goes from maybe driving the truck to riding in the truck and acting as the mechanic, the diagnostic, the customer service rep for the carrier. He doesn't have to
Absolutely.
now just hold the steering wheel. I think that's going to be what we see moving forward, especially as regulations continue,
Mhm.
and the technology gets better, man.
Well, you make a great point. The pilot's still in the airplane can fly itself. So, I mean, it might not be able to land per se, but
The trains run themselves too, man.
right, exactly. You
Yeah.
still have to have a conductor. Yeah, you're exactly right. I agree with you 100%. It just changes their role. And even with other automation within the industry, it's going to get rid of some jobs, of course, but you just got
Yep.
to figure out where your niche is. Plus, everybody, in my opinion, nowadays should have an AI assistant.
I think.
It just makes your
Yep.
job easier, makes you more efficient. Even if it's as little, and I do this, I have mine tell me what my to-do list is, and it'll send me alerts throughout the day just so I don't forget. That way I ain't got 1,000 little notepads of writing. I mean, little simple things make a big difference.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I think what you're gonna see is kind of especially at least in the American economy. I can't really speak for the whole world. The American attitude is still number one as far as trying to make it happen. The
Hmm.
American work ethic, dude, it's still second to none in my opinion. So the
Oh
guys that
yeah.
are, that increase their value to other people are going to be the ones that excel.
Mhm.
The guys in trucking that just want to like clock in, clock out, hold the steering wheel, they're gonna go. They're gonna be gone. There's
Yeah.
no value for that. You don't need low skilled workers in this industry. You need people that want to solve problems and make themselves more valuable to the customers, to the warehouses, to the end users. And I think all of that is completely doable. I mean, I do not think it's going to be this big fearful thing as long as people adopt it, not just with data centers, but you're going to probably see an increase in we can call them distribution centers, but the over the road model for trucking, I think, is also going to change. I
I
think
agree
you're going to have
100%.
shorter legs. I think you're going to have
Hmm.
more distribution nodes where you can do a heck of a lot more local runs. You can
Mhm.
house multiple customers' freight in the same location and have it picked up by whatever carrier you want, have it delivered to the final door. And that in and of itself is going to bring about some pretty exciting opportunities with different forms of trucking, different kinds of technology. I mean, imagine if you could have a truck or a type of truck that was dedicated to delivering 2 to 4 pallets only. And
Mhm.
its whole chassis was built around that size freight, palletized, drop it off with a lift gate at your front door by itself. Imagine. I think it's possible.
Yeah. Oh, it's more than possible because I think you should just go and just done a commercial for Amazon Logistics. They've really come into the brokerage side now, and that's
Yep.
exactly what they're going to do. Is they're going to work. They've got all these customers lined up that are already in their system anyway. They're just going
Yep.
to take more of their freight and then go stick it at all their different warehouses, just like you would do in the affiliate programs that they have, where you just send it in, they sell it for you, and then it's going to be smaller. And I agree totally. I've said with electric trucks, that's what's definitely going to happen. You're going to have a 7 or 8 hour run to a warehouse. You're just going to charge your truck. You're going to get back in it. You're going to pick a trailer going back to your terminal. It's just going to be
Yep.
terminal runs, and then you'll have. Maybe they even come out with a different type of box truck that maybe can hold a little bit more, that can, get into smaller areas. Maybe it goes up 10, 5,000, 10,000 pounds more and to load it and stuff. So yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of that, and honestly, it might help the industry because the truck drivers that we have now, they're not over the road guys. They don't want to stay out a month at a time like the old guys
That
did.
era of trucking's gone.
It's gone. So
Those
yeah, I
guys,
agree.
the American trucker has changed. I mean, it's in part, part of it's good, part of it's bad, but the dudes that would live in their truck for 25 years
Yep.
and this was their role, man, they're just not there anymore.
No.
And is it sad? In a way, it's sad, but as technology progresses, there's opportunity. There's
Right. Shouldn't
opportunity.
be. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, all right. Well, give us where how that everybody can get a hold of you
Yep.
and all that, and so we can maybe somebody out there is looking for a job or needs a good broker that can get in touch with you.
My website is work dash horse like the animal logistics with an s.com. You can also just always email me at esgrove at work dash horse logistics.com. I'm looking for anybody who likes to have kind of a more curtailed and custom approach to their logistics. So whatever freight you're moving, man, send it my way. I'll tell you if I can do it, and if I can't, I'm happy to say I can't. I would prefer anything import export. So
Mhm.
that means coming from any of your major ocean ports around the United States or any of their major rail ramps. I love doing that stuff. I can do it for you. I can, if you normally go through a freight forwarder or an NVOCC, I can be the transportation provider for them as well and handle your stuff. I'm more than happy to link you up with warehouses if you need it. And furthermore, a lot of people have freight that they want to bring into the United States or send out of the United States, but they really have no idea how to get it done.
Mhm.
And those kinds of problems, those kinds of Rubik's cubes are things I really
Yeah.
enjoy. If you've got a warehouse full of stuff, man, I guarantee you I can bring it to a place to palletize it, shrink wrap it, get it on a container, and get it out of the country to make you happy. And if I can't, I can find somebody who can. I mean, there's a lot of guys still in this industry that love word of mouth, love referrals, don't even have websites. I only just got my website up a couple months ago because my wife finally made me do it. And that's that's that really is a testament to how kind of Wild West this industry still is, which makes me
Mhm.
love it. And if I
Absolutely.
can be of service to anybody out there or their customers, man, I would love to do it.
Well, Stacy, we appreciate you coming on, giving your perspective and your story. We wish you all the best of luck. I want to thank our sponsors that make this happen. This episode is brought to you by Gray Cross. It's graycross.org. Is a dedicated supporting organization for trucking families when they need it the most. Whether it's a medical emergency, financial hardship, or unexpected situation on the road like a loss of life, they step in to provide real help for people behind the wheel. The industry runs on truck drivers, and Gray Cross does their best they can to help those families and take care of them when it matters most. Everybody, if you can go and donate $1, $10, $20, it all going to a good cause. Remember, if you got something in your home, it came from a truck driver. I mean, that should answer any and every question. They're out there sacrificing their lives every day. So go check that out. It's a great organization, graycross.org. And of course, we want to thank our main sponsor, ReadyApp. ReadyApp is changing the way drivers, carriers, and brokers connect by creating a verified driver profile that puts everyone in one place: work history, documents, qualification, all organized and ready to go. Instead of filling out the same applications over and over, drivers can share their complete profile and companies can hire you faster with more confidence. It's about bringing structure, transparency, and trust into the process that's been fragmented for a long time. Again, Stacey, we appreciate it. Let's stay in touch. Let's keep the talk going. Everybody, we appreciate you checking in. Make sure to subscribe, share the show. We'll catch you next time on an episode of Trucker Talk Radio.